They get what we got. And nothing more, nothing less. So it was a horrible mess. That's when I said, okay, let's go back to the workshops. They should be in it. That's what we all got. That gives us the 19 sessions. And I don't care if Mrs. Galambos didn't want them in there. I'm sorry. I'm sorry. I'm sorry. I'm sorry, Mrs. Galambos. I answer to your husband. And only to him. Tough decision. But I did it. On January 16th, the indexing began. We have approximately 9,000 entries in this index. 9,000. So it began on January 16th. February 1st, the first wave of editing was completed. My first wave of editing was completed. On the February 6th, the lads here write for me, Bill leaves for South American cruise. Says he's going to complete 3 workshops. I did. It wasn't easy. February 12th, Eric takes the first wave of editing on the zip disk, whatever that's supposed to mean, to Hayes, picks up a check for the remaining sessions. I want you to know that I said, you guys got to give me a need line, but I don't like need lines. I want to get off of it fast. Pay me $7,500 a month for 3 months. At the end of 3 months, starting from October the 19th, I'll have you paid back. After that, we're on a free ride. I'm not a free ride, but you're paying us exactly for what we do. So on this date, we got paid off, and then we were on a per session basis. Through February and March, we put the final touches on the index and text. On March 24th, 1998, that was the deadline, remember? We meet with Hayes at my office at 7 p.m. He brings his wife, Linda. Now listen up. My wife was present, Julie. Benjamin Cooper was present. Eric Falvey was present. I was present. Linda Hayes was present. Charles Hayes was present. And my lovely daughter Heidi was present. At this meeting, Hayes never thanks me for having delivered the book. Instead, he says to me, you know, you didn't deliver the book to the printers today. I says, how do you know? We had it ready to go to the printers. They didn't deliver to us the stuff we needed. Signatures from checks that Galambos wrote. Do you know that you are all supposed to get an original signature by Galambos? Did you know that? Yeah. You know how you're going to get it? Checks. 2,500 checks. Actually, a little bit less than that, for a reason that I'll go into a little bit later. Checks. We had been to the printers. They were going to take those checks, cut out the signature. For each book, every signature is different, and laminate them in there. Not glue them, laminate them for you, every one of you. Your signature. Original signature. Even though our great teacher is dead. From his checks. They didn't deliver to me the checks. So we told him that. Then he opens the book up and he turns to the foreword. The foreword of the book, which I wrote. According to my own lights, the way I saw him, by my own style. And at the end of the foreword of the book, I didn't put any signature. You'll see that this one has WWM down there at the bottom. It's probably hard for you to see. You can come up and look at it later. I'm just telling you right now. I had nothing there. I wanted to see what Hayes would say. So, number one salvo. You know you didn't get the book to the printers on the 24th. Actually, we had till the 28th to get it all resolved anyway, according to the contract, which you read. That's number one. Number two. Oh, I see you haven't signed, you haven't put your signature under the forward. And I said, that's right, Charles. That's right. We need to resolve a little issue here. Need to resolve a little issue here. How do I sign it? I think the readership deserves to know whether this book has imprimatur on it. Is it authorized? And what makes it authorized? You know what makes it authorized, ladies and gentlemen? Galambos' trust. Galambos' trust. Here are 3 questions that have to be answered. You should all ask this question. This you deserve a right to know. Here it is. By whose authority, under whose auspices, and by whom was the theory of freedom provided to you? Galambos named me as a literary executor. That's by whom? Galambos is the one who has the authority, and the auspices are his natural trust. If I don't sign this as W. W. Martin or William W. Martin or Martin, literary executor of the natural estates of Andrew J. and Susan J. Galambos, we don't have an authorized version. So Hayes, I said, you know, I said, Charles, you know what my position is? And he goes, yeah, well, where's the credits to Mrs. Galambos? I said, there aren't any. Well, you got to have that. Got to put it in there. Got to have acknowledgments to Mrs. Galambos. I says, let me tell you something. I'd love to. But credit for where credit is due. The definition of gratitude, Charles, is market acknowledgement where due for value received. Well, you got to have it. And I said, Charles, are you asking me to tell a lie? Are you telling me that I should put Mrs. Galambos' name up there along my name as an editor, not as a literary executor? You're still holding out on that, aren't you? Now, with my witnesses, I'm going to ask them to speak up here in this meeting. I want you each to speak up. Charles Hayes said, and I'm glad this is being recorded, it's just a little fraud. That's right. It's just a little fraud. And his wife, Linda, please note this now. She's married to him. His wife, Linda, said, why, Charles, that's against the theory. Bless her heart. I've not heard any more from her. I'd love to call her. But I'm afraid if I call, I'll get that guy on the line and I'll hang up. I don't like to hang up on people. May I get some corroboration here? Julie, stand up. Let everybody hear what you say. What you tell your story. Okay, Eric?
Exactly. He told him what was going on. He said, oh, that's just sort of a fraud. And his wife Linda immediately, knee-jerk reaction, said, oh, but Charles, that's against the theory. A knee-jerk reaction.
Yeah. Ben?
Charles Hayes said he wanted to commit fraud on the book that's going to give us freedom.
Sit down, that's enough, please. Thank you. Wow, that's a blockbuster.
Bill, those get recorded on, they're pretty far away from your microphone.
What was that again?
They get recorded on your microphone, they're pretty far away.
Oh, gee, I don't know. Let me just say that my wife, and Mr. Falvey and Mr. Cooper, who were witnesses to that statement, all corroborated it. I said to myself that night, what poor class. Had I been the trustee of Galambos' estate, I'll tell you what I would have done, ladies and gentlemen. I would have walked in, I would have had the memorandum of agreement in one hand, and I would have walked up to Bill Martin, or if it had been somebody else and I'd been the trustee, and I would have shaken his hand fervently. And I would have said, congratulations. And as for this memorandum of agreement, I tear it up and I toss it on the floor. From now on, you have the status of the man in V201 who had integrity insurance and didn't even have to pay a premium because it was such an honor for an insurance company to have him as a policyholder. And that's how I would have acted, and I never got that kind of class from them. Instead, I got a statement, you didn't get the thing to the printer today. That's the kind of people I'm dealing with here. Now, I'm coming to the denouement, the climax of this very historic meeting tonight. They say, my good loyal helpers, they write this. I might as well let them have their primary credit here. They wrote this. Somebody wrote. Who wrote this? Ben, was it you or was it you, Eric? Okay, Eric, I'll read you. Hayes chastises us for not having it at the printers. Well, I've said that. On that day, even though he had not gotten any of the signed checks to be used as signatures into our hands. How in the hell can the printers put the book out without signatures to laminate into the books for all of you? I've told them about the sort of a fraud. If the book is not a bestseller, oh yeah, oh yes, oh yes. He let us know that if the second edition of book one, paperback, remember, is not a bestseller, quote unquote, then the other courses will remain in storage on CD form, I guess, CD form, etc. And we all had a horror wave because I said, well, there goes the rest of my career. They'll use that as their excuse not to fund any more editing and publishing of books. Now, I called Joyner on that, and he said, oh, I never said that. I never said that. I said, Hayes said it. And you guys are co-trustees. I suppose you have a little squabble going on here. Well, no, I haven't talked about it. All right, here we go. March 25th, 1998. Ben and Eric visit with Jane at Ninish Printers here in San Diego. They've been around since 1895. They got state-of-the-art stuff. They're dying to do the book. They think it's great. They love the idea of the laminated signatures. They have a printer or for doing the diagrams in the book, where we're going to do them in color, by the way, so you'll all know that. I want you all to know that. All the diagrams are in color. In all the original colors on the slides. It's a beautiful, swanky look. When you turn to the scientific method, and you turn to the profit chart, and when you look at the rest of the diagrams in the syllogisms, you're going to have it just the way you saw it. Red, blue, green, black. It's great. It's great. They can hardly wait to do it. Cost? $85,000 bucks. That's it. Another $20,000. No, that's including the binders in Phoenix. We've checked them all out. The computer disk is ready. I think, is it in their hands? Well, I mean, it could be within 15 minutes. These people are anxious to go. I thought that I had a real good chance, once this book was completed, to then sit down, the trustees, both of them, say, okay, boys, it's time for you to get a little lesson in volitional science. This is how you're going to behave from now on. We're going to scrap that memorandum of agreement because I never looked upon it as a contract at all, even though I performed on it. But I'm not going forward with you anymore until we get this ship righted. And Got a little ahead of myself, so keep that in mind, though. We're talking about the 9-inch printers. We take a tour of the facilities. Very good feelings about these people. State of the art. On March 27th, Ben and Eric again visit Jane at 9-inch printers, discuss the lamination process to keep the signatures in book on permanent basis. Jane to give final quote, including lamination to us on Monday. Performing beautifully according to the contract. Later that day, Ben, Bill, and Eric meet with Hayes. I called the guy. He'd never answered my phone, so I said, let's get in the car and go see the guy. We'll walk right in his office. Let's see what he does. And when we went in there, he was pretty shaken up, I'll tell you that. But he met with us, and he lays a bomb on us. Here's the bomb. He gasps at the quote from 9-ish. He says, I have an old quote from Cubicor. I never heard of him before. Maybe some of you have. Hayes claims Cubicor is 1/3 the cost. So now we got a nice big fat delay. He says, and so Eric writes in here, why did he wait until now to provide us with this information? Ben calls Cubicor on March the 30th for our specifics, with our specifics on how the book will be printed and bound. On April the 3rd, ladies and gentlemen, Cubicor faxes back a letter saying they cannot offer a competitive price for the book. They specialize in a fully automated print bind process. They cannot handle the significant amount of handwork, complete with color graphs, lamination of signatures, etc. We can't do it. We're fully automated. No wonder they're so cheap. April 8th, Hayes says that the printing, now please hear this. Hayes says the printing and the editing are getting out of hand. And editing. And editing. I thought we agreed on that on Zama Day. Now the editing is getting out of hand? How could it? We've already agreed on the price. What are you talking about here? Is that a slip of the tongue? You're giving yourself away. It offended the hell out of me. Make changes to the acknowledgments page. They didn't like the fact in the acknowledgments that I listed my wife as a caterer. Do you know that at 12:30 at night in the morning, 11:30 at night, my wife would know we were toiling down there. My wife would bring us chicken and rice, bring me a 6-pack of beer, which I desperately needed. She brought us love. She brought us womanly things that only women can give. She filled our office with love. Caterer, you're damn right. It wasn't just food. It was her. God, it was wonderful for us. My wife wanted that. She did a little editing, a little bit. Could have said she was one of the editors. She says, no. I just like to be remembered in history as your caterer. I says, baby, you got it. Joyner says, we don't want that in the acknowledgments. Put it somewhere else. And I said, I know why you did that. You're just a damn feminist. You think caterer demeans a woman. You're wrong. So they want me to change over the recent changes. Can't have, still saying, can't have literary executor for signature. Mrs. Galambos to be acknowledged. I said, I've beat my head against the proverbial brick wall long enough. I tell the boys they can go to hell. I can't remonstrate with them. To quote Thomas Paine, to argue with a man who has renounced the use and the authority of reason and whose philosophy holds mankind in contempt is like administering medicine to the dead or endeavoring to convince an atheist with Scripture. That's what I'm up against. On April 9th, Hayes calls my office. Bill, where's those faxes? Those changes we required. I said, they're here, but there aren't any changes. Well, what do you mean? Don't we have an appointment to go see 9-inch printers? Then I said, I canceled it. And you're never going to get the changes either. He says, what are you talking about? You mean to tell me you're not going to let this book go to press? I says, you got it right. He says, you're going back on your word. And I said, I never gave you my word. I gave you a deception here. He goes, I don't believe what I'm hearing. I don't believe. You signed a contract. I says, no contract. Same thing as the guy in the dark alley, Charles. You've disqualified yourself as a trustee. I don't do business with you anymore. I'm thinking of posterity. First, we clean up our stables. We clean house. We get the rules established, and the rules are the theory, and only the theory. And you've misbehaved. So, he threatens me. I tell him, I says, you know, you're stupider than I thought you were. And we shared words. He told me to go to hell. I told him the same. He hung up. I hung up. That was where? Let's see. April 9th, I think it was. He lied. I called up Paul McEwen, who's the attorney that drafted the agreement. I says, Paul, do you understand what is meant by the duties that Galambos wanted the literary executor to perform? Or is that so confusing that you can't make any sense of it? He says, well, no, it's clear. He says, I said, do you think, answer me yes or no, Mr. Attorney, Mr. Paul McEwen. Yes or no? Did Galambos wish to establish such a thing as a literary executorship? Yes. Did he state what the literary executor is to do? Yes. Do you understand what he said? Sure. Interesting, Paul, I told him. The trustees don't understand this. Would you please call them and tell them what it means for me? He says, sure. I called, when I talked to Hayes, I was having this dispute. I said, by the way, did Paul McEwen call you, Charles? He said, yeah, and he doesn't know. He says he doesn't know anything at all about this literary executor business. He hasn't got the foggiest idea what it means. That's Charles, that's what he said. Doesn't have the foggiest idea what it means. I picked the phone up after I hung up. Paul, I just talked to Hayes. He tells me that you don't have the foggiest idea of what the literary executor's duties mean. He goes, I didn't say that to him. So I get a call from Joyner. This is on April 11th. Now, what are we now? We're May the 1st. This is less than a month ago. We're getting close now to here. On the 11th of May, Joyner meets with me and Ben and Eric for over 7 hours. Comes to my office Saturday. 7 hours. I said to him when he arrived, I said, you know, thanks for driving down here, Wayne. I understand you are trying to make things better. At least that's what you say. Let me tell you, make it simple. I'm adamant about the literary executorship. I'm adamant about these other issues, too. I won't share the credit with somebody who didn't do anything. That is reflected in this book. He said, well, in that case, he says, you're not going to get those. I said, well, in that case, pack up your bags and head back to Los Angeles. This meeting's over. 7 hours later, after I remonstrated it with him for 2 hours, I won't go into all the gory details, Ben Cooper here spent another 2 hours talking to him, and he still was adamant. It's impossible to reason with him. So then I faxed. Oh, he did say, please send up to me, this is Joyner speaking now, this is how he parted, please send up to me how you think the trustees should interact with you. My God, we've been through this for weeks. And I says, okay, I'll do it. And now I will show you, I hope this comes out on the slide. This is the fax I sent on, I'll read it for you, on the 13th of April, 1998. Dear Wayne, the attached memorandum of initial agreement will establish the basis from which we will negotiate a mutually profitable and hopefully amicable relationship that will not only acquit us well with the professor in history, but will fulfill on the enormously critical challenges that presently face us. I would like to see your and Charles's signatures on this memorandum by the end of today so that we can work out further details of implementation immediately. Ladies and gentlemen, you know what I sent up to him? Hit it, Ben. Here it is. I guess you can't see it. All right, well, hell. Where is it? Just a minute. It's easier for me to read it from this. Okay, here it is. This is what I sent. I hope you will recall what was stated in the trust. Here we go. In view of disagreements between the trustees, that's up here, this top paragraph, and the literary executor of the natural estates of Andrew J. Galambos and Suzanne J. Galambos, the following terms of their natural estate trust dated April 16, 1992, are cited to resolve these disagreements so that the wishes of the trustors regarding the editing and publishing of their literary works can be successfully carried out. Concerning the literary executor, and what they didn't know is all I did is go back to the trust and cite the terms. Here we go. Number one, concerning the literary executor, to act as agent of the trustors with respect to their literary properties, including the management, editing, or publishing of any manuscripts which are a part of the estate of the trustees. 2, to work with the trustee in this regard. 3, to give preference to the publication of the edited transcripts of Andrew J. Galambos' courses. 4, to follow a separate set of instructions of the literary executor, which is incorporated by reference in the above-mentioned trust. 5, to recognize that the management of manuscripts, which are a part of the estate of the trustors, does not terminate, because I wanted this in here, does not terminate with the editing and publishing of Andrew J. Galambos' transcribed courses extant at his death, but will continue in connection with his other theories and works. Concerning the trustee. 1, to concentrate distributions from the above-mentioned trust on activities that will further the publication, perpetuation, and protection of the innovations of Andrew J. Galambos. That's straight from the trust. That's straight from the trust, including such publications of the theories and other works of Professor Galambos as may be appropriate. 2, to permit no person to present any live version of any lecture or lecture course that was ever presented by either trustor during their respective lifetimes, including presentations made through the Free Enterprise Institute by the trustors individually under their own auspices or in any other way. 3, to consult with and to utilize the services of a literary executor with respect to the management, editing, and or publishing of any manuscripts which are a part of the estate of the trustors. This is old hat, you know. Concerning essential related matters. 1, the trustees nominate James D. Gafford as the literary executor, subsequently resigned, and William W. Martin as the successor literary executor to work with the trustees in the performance of the literary executor's duties as agent for the literary properties of the trustors. 2, by accepting the nomination of the trustors following the resignation of James D. Gafford, the successor literary executor, William W. Martin, is bound by all the terms regarding the executorship of the trustors' literary properties, and as such, holds a contractorship with the trustors, which includes all the powers implied in the carrying out of its explicitly named duties. Subscribed in duplicate in San Diego, California, on 1998, April 13th. Signed, William W. Martin, literary executor, which I didn't sign it. Signed, I want their signatures first. Charles W. Hayes, co-trustee. Signed, Wayne Joyner, co-trustee. That's my memorandum of agreement. The date is whatever I said. All right, now, watch what happens. What was the date here? Joyner calls back, talks to Eric. Oh, Eric, thank you, Eric. Eric phones Joyner. Why he didn't call back shows lack of urgency on his part. He had promised to call back that afternoon, the day he got that fax. He never called us back. Joyner claimed he was swamped, quote unquote, with taxes. That's why he hadn't got back to us. Guess what? I don't give a damn if it was tax season. What could be more important than this? They make us wait 2 days before they call back. That's why Joyner faxes back his response later that afternoon. Now let's take a look at his response. Dear Mr. Martin, let's see if I get a copy here. Do I have a copy of that? I don't see it here. Yeah, here it is. On Monday morning, I received your initial memorandum of agreement. The reason why I called it an initial memorandum of agreement is that before I'm going to negotiate with you guys about anything, first of all, we've got to have a meeting of the minds. We've got to agree with the professor here. We've got to have a meeting of the minds with respect to the trust. I'm not interested in negotiating particulars. I want you to agree with respect to the principles that were clearly enunciated in the trust. You don't agree with that? We don't do business. I answer to the professor, so should you. Now listen to his letter. On Monday morning, I received your initial memorandum of agreement. For the most part, the proposed agreement merely recites the wording of the trust. And then to show what little fraidy cats they are, the final paragraph points out one of the major difficulties I have with the proposed agreement in that it refers to powers implied. What the hell is he afraid of? Trustees have powers implied. A wife has powers implied. A husband has powers implied. What the hell is he worried about? Scared. They're afraid of me. By the way, Joyner says he is afraid of me. He says, you're a firebrand. You scare me. You're too intense. Say it. Stand up and say it quick.
I heard him on occasion say that. He also said the same of professor.
Yes, he did. Yes, he did. He says, I think you're a hothead, Martin. I said, hothead, okay. Puts me in good company. Galileo, Thomas Paine, a few other people like that. I got no problem with being a hothead, as long as you're right. And I don't take stuff easy. I'm a fighter. If somebody cusses at me or spits on my wife, he's going to get the crap kicked out of him. I don't take crap from anybody. And I don't take crap from these trustees either. So when I tell them what I think, in no uncertain terms, and sometimes it can be a little saucy because it's very appropriate, they think I'm a madman. Powers implied. In our discussion Saturday, I thought you were going to propose an agreement that outlined the powers and duties of a literary trustee in dealing with the trustees of the trust. This would include not only explicit terms for publication of Book 1, but would include an outline for future publications of tape courses. How would disagreements over order of publication, payment for the literary work, or publication schedules be resolved? For instance, how would we resolve a situation where, from the trust point of view, the editing and publication of tape courses was proceeding too slowly? The reverse of that situation would be if the work was being produced at a rate faster than the trust could afford to pay. Ladies and gentlemen, this is a quibbler. This is a man who's looking for ways not to do deals. He's looking for problems. Before I talk about things like that, which are easy to resolve, I want agreement on the fundamental principles from which we can derive the answers. Given the present difficulty, I believe the agreement should certainly address not only the completion of Book 1, but an outline as to how future publications would be handled and potential disputes resolved. Fine, I'll tell you exactly how all that can happen, because obviously you don't know how. And what I'll do is I'll derive it from the principles that are in Galambos' trust. It's very simple. And where those principles are wanting, I'll go to the theory. Easy. But you guys aren't willing to sign a document that says you agree with the professor. No can do. No can do. I look forward to your thoughts in these areas. Yeah? Well, we'll see. So, here's what I wrote. Put it up, Ben. This is a beauty. But first, before you do it, try again. In response to your letter of April 15th, 19, try again. Another one went, ha! Okay. Initial memorandum of agreement. Let's see, where am I here? I faxed back my response. You just saw that. Try again. Joiner faxes back saying he cannot agree. He cannot agree. We got a copy of that, Ben. Is this it here? You sure?
Yeah. You had a conversation with him on the phone, and this is his response.
Thank you. Did you all hear that? I had a conference with Joiner on the phone. He says he couldn't agree with it. And I said, well, put that in writing. Send it to me. Here's what it says. This will confirm our conversation today regarding the editing and publishing of Book 1. I told you that I could not agree to your proposed initial memorandum of agreement. God almighty, he's so damn stupid, he just buried himself with that. What he's saying is I cannot agree with the professor because all I cited in the memorandum of agreement was the professor's trust. And I'm giving you the proof here. I also told you that Mr. Hayes believes a continuing relationship with you would lead to similar problems in the future. Amen. Amen. My opinion is that there is significant P1. Oh boy, does he patronize me. I swear to God, I'll never let that man patronize me. He's not worthy to tell me whether I'm worth anything. But he tries. My opinion is that there is significant P1 and P2 to be earned, that you are certainly capable of earning both. Thanks a lot, Wayne. I really appreciate your compliment. And I would like to see the Zama Day. Why does he put it in quotes? Why does he put that in quotes? Zama Day, it's big. It's big in the theory. What do you got to put quotes around it for? Because it's mine. Cutesy Pie. Crazy Wild Martin. Because when I signed the memorandum of agreement, I put Zama Day on it to remind them of a little bit of ideological and historical sensitivity, just to dig them. So he puts it in quotes. I advised you that the 1997 October 19th agreement, along with the trust agreement, has been reviewed by attorneys. By attorneys? The hell? Knowledgeable in contract, trust, and copyright law. Their opinion was that you have no rights outside the October agreement. I couldn't care less about the attorney's agreement. I propose that the 1997 October 19th Zama Day agreement be completed. For your request, this summary of our conversation has been sent via fax for your consideration. Please let me know your response as soon as possible. Very truly yours. Please, the next response. It's a humdinger. Now you're going to hear the language of the literary executor. This is the first time I've let him have it. I got to find it because I got to read it off this thing. Here we go. You ready? You're going to like it. You better. Dear Mr. Joiner, all right, let's look at the Zama Day contract for a moment. It is full of flatland crap. And I put crap the way Galambos wanted it to be, with a capital K. Crap in Spaceland is with C. Crap in Splatland, capital K. How many of you knew that one? Yeah, well, you just learned something about the theory. It's a great thing. We'll never get to the end of this man, Galambos. He's better than you ever dreamed. V50 is better than you ever dreamed. Just read the book. May I remind you that you have chosen to edit out the title of literary executor under my signature for the foreword. This deletion is subject to my approval. Remember? Remember in the agreement? I do not so approve. You have also insisted that I add Mrs. Galambos and her assistants as co-editors for Volume 1 of the book. Since I have not utilized any of her work, I am under no obligation to acknowledge her as a BGR. I wonder if he knows what that means. Moreover, this would be a lie foisted upon the readers of this volume, not to mention Mrs. Galambos and her helpers. It would also be a crime against the professor. I do not so approve. Concerning your facts to me of April 20th, 1998, I am not the least bit interested in what lawyers think about contract, trust, and copyright law. You should know that Galambos has provided the absolute, final, revolutionary constructions on these concepts, that we do not recognize the specious authority of flatland laws, and that as builders of freedom we are on far higher ground in answer to an infinitely higher authority. Remember, Galambos said, it's not a careless use of the word infinite when you go from nothing to something. And I'm telling them that what you're going to is nothing. And we don't answer to nothing. We answer to something. And therefore, what we answer to is infinitely more than what you answer to. It is a gross admission. And by the way, before I continue reading, I heartily recommend you get a big dose of me and you take it out into the world and use it. It's wonderful for your self-esteem. It's very empowering. It's very ennobling. God damn it, it's time we start kicking some you-know-what. It is a gross admission of servility and incompetence on your part to trot off to Flatlanders for guidance on how you are to interact with the professor's literary executor as he carries out the critical tasks of editing and publishing Galambos' literary properties. I will not be a party to such maneuvers. How can Flatlanders possibly know how to resolve the challenges that face us? Let me also remind you that the professor's market and history will closely scrutinize your actions as a trustee and will wonder at how you could be so obtuse as to not understand the professor's stated wishes concerning the interacting roles of the trustee and literary executor. I say we scrap the memorandum and reconstitute our relationship, and that we do this by following the principles of V50 and V201. Our initial hang-up has been that I want you to agree with what Galambos states in his trust, and you refuse on the grounds that you do not know what he means. Another obstacle between us, and just as egregious, is your insistence that Hayes be, here's where it comes, ladies and gentlemen. This is the critical issue. This is where it's going to hang. This is it. I saved it for last. Another obstacle between us, and just as egregious, is your insistence that Hayes be your co-trustee. I have told you in no uncertain terms that this violates the professor's explicit teachings on natural estate trusteeships. The fact that this co-trusteeship was incorporated into the trust in an amendment by Mrs. Galambos in no way invalidates the professor's principle of singular management of a natural estate trust. You say you do not agree and instead seek flatland laws to justify your position. I am afraid the professor has labored over you in vain. One more point, and there are many others that could be mentioned, is that you allowed me to dissuade you of your absurd notion that any differences between us, ideological or otherwise, should be resolved by the American Arbitration Association. Yet your solution to this, see Section 8C in the Zamadeh Agreement, was just as insensitive and naive as your first attempt. You placed the final resolution of any literary or ideological disagreement you would have with me upon the head of someone other than Galambos' own literary agent. This, too, is invalid thinking on your part and shows your insensitivity to whose property is whose. I also remind you that you have defended the ridiculous deadlines and penalties that you have imposed on me with the ludicrous argument that the literary executor's work is not innovative and therefore does not come under the professor's stricture that progress reports are the enemy of science and progress. Once again, you have demonstrated your ignorance of the theory of primary property. You have asked, why then did I sign the memorandum of agreement? This is key. For some reason, I don't know why it is, I surely hope it isn't visited upon any of you in this room, but I'm finding that people have a hard time generalizing. Galambos always used to say that. Now I'm going to ask you to generalize here in this room tonight so that you get my point here, because I got a lot of people have a hard time trying to understand this whole point. You're going to have to generalize now, so listen to this here. You have asked, why then did I sign the memorandum of agreement? Isn't it obvious? Do you have to ask? Okay, here's the answer. You and Hayes arrogated unauthorized powers to yourselves by claiming you had the right to choose the person who would edit and or publish the book, and threatened to cut me off if I didn't play ball with your demands. You possessed the tapes, transcripts, slides, computers, scanners, printers, instructions to the literary executor, mailing lists, dedications, personal signatures by the professor, etc., 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 without which I couldn't fulfill my duties as literary executor. And of course, you held the purse strings. In short, I signed the agreement because without doing so, I could never have done what I have done. I was in exactly the same position as the victim who tells the robber a deception in order to protect his own property. A story taught to us by the professor to illustrate that defense is always moral.
I disagree.
You may disagree.
I think that you're
may
asking
disagree.
us to agree to go into the guy's house and steal $1,000 out of his dresser drawer, and that makes it okay. You signed an agreement. You didn't live by your end of the agreement. You had no intention of living by your end of the agreement when you signed the thing. Your need for
Except
his
that I
book
did.
and his property is a claim on them. That's bullshit. Andrew Galambos quoted Winston Churchill all the time about never, never give up. He would never stand and praise somebody for resigning. He'd tell them, go back and try again, try again, try again until you get it right.
You
But
through?
he'd never stand around publicly and praise somebody for quitting.
Are you through?
Andrew Galambos was not a quitter, and I think this is ludicrous. And if you guys want to participate in this theft of the top desk drawer, $1,000, you go right ahead. But this is theft. This is a crime that this man is trying to perpetrate. He's got a great presentation. I apologize for using his hallway that he took a lot of trouble
You are wrong, sir.
Well, explain to me my error.
Absolutely wrong.
Yeah, I think
Mr.
you're wrong.
Martin
Who had the most to gain by you resigning?
Mr.
This
Fountain?
man.
Mr. Fountain, are you through?
No, first of all, Mr. Martin did not go into the details of the resignation that took place.
No, we don't.
Who had the most to gain by you resigning?
Okay.
Your,
Yeah.
your question
I'll
is-
respond.
I'd like the response. I beg your pardon, and he rented the room,
Mr.
and I
Fountain?
apologize for
Mr.
that.
Fountain?
But I can't stand by and watch this, and I'd like to
Fine.
hear an explanation.
I gave it to you. Obviously, you do not have the intellectual acuity to understand it. That's clear.
I see somebody that didn't agree with their written contract, Flatland or Spaceland.
So you think
and it
any
was
written contract you
premeditated.
have to agree if you sign it? Is that what you're saying?
No one held a gun to your head to sign that contract.
Oh, hell, that's a thought print from Joyner.
The contrary. That's exactly the point. He did literally have a gun held to his head.
That's right.
In a figurative sense.
And it's not, I know, I'll go on, Eric, but I want to make one more statement here, just for everybody to hear. It's more than a gun to my head. You got the destiny of mankind in the bargain here. Forget my life. You can't generalize it, huh?
Why didn't we just break into the Institute and steal the
Oh,
tapes?
come on, man. Your logic is so invalid, I won't even answer it.
You
I will
signed
not
the
give to
agreement.
dogs what is holy. Get out of here.
Okay.
Go. You're not welcome. Good. Now we'll continue. That was a put-up job. Well, I will continue with just as much verve as I had before. Now, I assure you that I am quite capable of working with you and coming to proper terms, you should have heard that, regarding specific applications of the professor's wishes. It is obvious that under the present circumstances, I am the only one capable of doing this. If you seek to take advantage of this fact, then I repeat what I have said all along. You must agree on the principles stated by the professor and referenced in my most recent memorandum of agreement. If you continue to insist upon completing the Zamadea contract and continue to seek flatland laws to justify your position, then I will be forced to block you by the powers vested in me in sections 3B and 7A of that agreement. Can you find that again, Ben, please? Lest you misconstrue the meaning of this action, let it be known that I will, in this case, be doing what any moral man has the right to do in the face of a direct or veiled threat of coercion. I'll read that again. Let me read that again. If you continue to insist upon completing the Zamadea contract and continue to seek flatland laws to justify your position, then I will be forced to block you by the powers vested in me in sections 3B and 7A of that agreement. Lest you misconstrue the meaning of this action, let it be known that I will in this case be doing what any moral man has the right to do in the face of a direct or veiled threat of coercion. That's my letter. That's what gets the reaction. This is the letter that triggered them. You know what I got after this? Let me see if I can find it. I started getting barraged by phone calls. Somebody said to me, "You need a mediator." I said, "Okay, let's see how good they can do it." Fred Marks was suggested. I remember him. He was a lawyer that worked for Galambos. He quit working for Galambos about 1982, I believe. So I called him up. Highly regarded by a lot of people. I started talking to him. Here's what happened. He agreed to help out in arranging that trustees can agree. So I've got to get the trustees to agree. I said, "Fred, you don't seem to understand what I'm insisting upon here. I'm going for it. I'm going for it. I say we get rid of Hayes. If they put me in jail, I'll go against Hayes. I don't recognize him as a valid trustee. He's a liar. God damn it, he's a liar. I've got witnesses to it. Galambos said in his remedy for coercion, there's no such a thing as a small interference with property. This man in front of witnesses said it's sort of a fraud. The hell with that. I'm not going to do business with him. I'm not thinking just of you. I'm thinking of posterity. Posterity is going to look at me, the literary executor, the extension of Galambos' very persona, the guy who's entrusted with the sacred primary property of his whole life. And I'm saying, what will posterity think of a man who compromises with a man who says, it's just a little fraud? What will they think of me? Forget you. Forget you. I'm thinking now of me. What will they think of me if I do that? What will they think of me if, in Galambos' theory, he says there can be no such thing as co-trustee? Put it back up, Ben. The entrepreneur, you need to see these. You need to see these. This is as it were, it's a holy gospel. No, just the thing on single, entrepreneur. Here. This is it. I'm not interested in what this creep over here says. I'm not interested in what anybody says. I'm not interested in any of you say, as a matter of fact. If you go against this, I answer to this, and so should you. And as a literary executor, as the man that Galambos entrusted and named as his literary executor, I have to tell you, this is what we go by. A company should only have one entrepreneur. Otherwise, we have the committee problem. And we have the problem of too many chiefs and not enough Indians. An operation should have an entrepreneur. Singular. Singular. Next question. Corporation. Natural estate trust. In case you wonder, is a natural estate trust a company? Is it a business? Is it a corporation? All right, let's look at this. This is in Workshop 1, Part A of V50. Natural estate is simply the totality of all your property when you're alive and also, and that's not it, Ben. It's the one in V201. Here it is. The natural estate is the permanent extension of a human being after his death. That is a corporation. It's a contractual arrangement where his property is administered. It is administered posthumously. So we've established the fact that a natural estate is a corporation. It is a business. It is administered. Now flip on to the other connecting statement here that clearly establishes that you can't have co-trusteeships. Yeah, a company should have only one entrepreneur, and we read it. That establishes the point as far as I'm concerned. I'm sticking by this one. So now back to Fred Marks. Fred Marks says to me, words to this effect. This is April 15th. What's the date today? We're getting close to it, just 2 weeks ago. That's right. Here it is. He agreed to help out in arranging the trustees, hopefully can agree. I sent him a record of all my correspondence, all the stuff you've seen here, joiners and mine, all the stuff you've been so patient to read through, and you're sitting here for a long time. You're doing great. It's worth it. This is an historic night. To hear this, let me find my place. I sent him a record of all of my correspondence and all my agreements. The memoranda, the memorandum of initial agreement, the responses that you just read. He calls back at the end of the day. Here's what he says to me. Fred Marks, a lawyer. Bill, come on. We've got to get the book out. The book is the most important thing. I bought 4 books. He says, you're going to have to, come on. Come on, don't be so absolute. Don't be so rigid. You've got to compromise. I said, I don't negotiate. I don't compromise. Why are you're supposed to be my mediator? How come you're asking me? You're telling me you see their side. He tells me I can't win in a flatland court. He's probably right. Don't deny that. But he says you can't win. You got to give up. I mean, not give up. He said you've got to go and see their side and bend. We got to get this done. The book is the most important thing. I says, no, it's not. The most important thing is what's right. We must establish an agreement with the Galambos' principles as enunciated in his trust. I keep repeating that. He says, well, here's what they want you to agree to. I says, okay, what is it? I got my pen and pencil. Here we are. You ready? 1, I have to affirm the validity of the 1019 agreement. That's the Zamadeh agreement. I have to affirm that. 2, create an amendment that future manuscripts that I turn in when I get paid be delivered not only in hard copy, but in digital form as well. Hell with that. Not until I'm done do they get the digital business. Until I learn how to behave. 3, I cannot use the literary executorship title. 4, this was the 24th of April, ladies and gentlemen. 4, they want an outline, this is on the 24th of May, of what I'm going to say at this meeting. Huh. They got to earn it. They got to earn it by behaving, then they can come. I have my men over here that if they showed up at the door, they were to be escorted out. 5, they want the autograph signatures they gave us. Very belatedly. How many were there? Eric, Ben? 605. 605. They said it was 750. They were really wrong on that. They never even counted them. Autograph, we counted them. I look upon those checks with those signatures of my great teacher as sacred property. No Catholic who ever venerated a relic more than I venerate those checks that my great teacher signed. That's sacred, sacred stuff. It's holy, precious. The autograph signatures were to be turned back. Trustees to affix them at the printers, not us. They are going to do it. They want to be in control. The trustees are to be in control, they said. And the last one. Point number 6. Agree by the 29th by noon, or else. What else did Fred Marks say to me on this date? I took notes. He sees the trustees' point of view. I can't win. And I give you a quote. Quote, extreme ideologies can come to great fights and people shoot each other, end quote. Quote, this is the stuff of which human tragedies are made. My fault. Quote, I want my 4 books. Quote, the most important thing is to get the book out. And I tell him, just because I wanted to stall. I'll see if I can describe the roles again. He says, well, I'd appreciate that. Do we have a copy of that? Good. Put it up here, please. It's my final facts. There it is. I didn't even type it this time. The hell with them. Dear Fred, tell them to agree with the terms of Schedule B, and I'll negotiate. If they disagree, let it be known that they are disagreeing with the professor. First things first. I'm still waiting for an answer. I'm still waiting for an answer. What I got in the mail was this. Oh, wait a minute. Just a minute. Yes. I got, Eric got, Ben got, all of us received a fax from attorney Gerald P. Kennedy of Procopio, Corey, Hargraves, and Savage here in San Diego, a large law firm, San Diego. A nasty letter in which it is said that we have to return all audio tapes and any copies or transcripts, reprints, or reproductions, as well as the autographed computer equipment and any and all manuscripts of Book 1. That's my work. I've got to turn that into them. If I don't do it by Monday, they're going to take all the resources, all the might, all the financial clout of my great teacher's estate, and they're going to level it against me and my 2 compadres here. And I don't have the resources to compete against that. And I got news for you, ladies and gentlemen, and I hope you are cheered by this. I'm not going to give it to them. I'm not going to give in, so I guess I go to jail. Who said that? I did. That's an excellent idea. We've thought of it. Do we have the other letter I wrote? The one that was the satirical one. Oh, I should have brought it. What's that again? Oh, somebody said over here, send them back Mrs. Galambos' book. And I said, we've thought of that. And by God, that's maybe just what I do. What's that? Yeah. That's what they would deserve. And this is no slight on Mrs. Galambos now. Oh, don't get that wrong. Don't think that. She worked heroically. She worked very hard. I love her for it. It's just that, like Galambos said somewhere, he said, you know, you get paid for what you do. I'd be happy to give out gold stars. But you only get paid for what you do. You got to deliver marketable goods. All right, we're almost done. We got this nasty letter. Here's what the letter is accusing us of. Breach of memorandum of agreement. I never breached it. There's the irony. They're so damn dumb. I never violated the agreement. I delivered the book on time. I did everything I was going to say. They just deleted something, and I had the right not to approve. They are the first ones to breach the contract. The fact that I'm not making the book available to the printers is that I want to scrap that thing and do away with the co-trusteeship, and let's get the ship righted, and let's do this right. And I'm going so far as to say, ladies and gentlemen, I don't think I could ever possibly stomach ever having to interact with that Joyner creep. Hayes got to go. Joyner, yes, man. Weak, vindictive, pathetic. If all of you were to say to me, Bill, if we can get Joyner to sever his relationship with Joyner, and with Hayes, and be reestablished as a trustee, would you, for the sake of all of us and freedom, would you interact with him? Well, I'll tell you, you don't compromise here. He's already shown his colors. But if I could get him to be an absolute, mindless yes man, and never that should be compromised at all, he'd always say, yes, 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 sir. I'd think about doing that. I really would. Put that in your pipe and smoke it. I'd be open to that. Breach of memorandum of agreement. Didn't breach it. Oh, yes, I did say I have no intentions to continue to honor it. Oh, yes, I did say I'm not the slightest bit interested in what lawyers say. And by the way, these people are so incompetent. Have you got the contract? Can you put it up there? This is the letter from the attorneys? All right, well, yeah. Yeah, don't put it on the screen. It's too damn much text. It's lawyerese anyway. But what it does say in here is, they get it all wrong. They say, ego collapse on the part of the attorney on page 2. This is really funny. Let's have a laugh. This will be funny. Oh boy, you can hardly wait to get to this one. Hardly wait to get to this one. We have been further provided with a copy of your letter dated April 22nd, 1998, wherein you affirm, quote, I am not the least bit interested in what lawyers think about contract tort. Tort. Did you get that? It was trust, remember? Tort. See, all I can think about is criminal law, torts. Tort and copyright law. That's right. I'm not interested in flatland copyright laws. Neither was Galambos. Let's get a quote on copyright law. Oh, God, I told these guys, get some quotes out of the book. Let's put them up here and show everybody. Let's see what Galambos, see if he agrees with me or not, or whether he agrees with these other guys. The copyright, which is the right to copy, belongs exclusively to the owner and to anyone that the author licenses. Who did Galambos license to carry out the editing and publishing of his books? Gafford points to me. He's quite right. He's quite right. First Gafford, then me. And I've delivered. That's the ultimate lever, everybody. That's the lever right there. The book is right there. There'll never be another one like it. And in a minute, I'm going to read you the forward because I don't think everybody got a chance. Not the state. Not the state. Oh, in this letter from the attorneys. Here, listen to this. Please be further advised that any representation by you that you either own or have rights to the distribution, sale, or exploitation of the copyrighted works, related materials, or manuscript of Book 1 constitutes willful and intentional violations of, among other things, 1, the Federal Copyright Act. Look up here. Of 1976, 17 U.S.C. number 501 et sec. 2, common law trademark restrictions. 3, unfair competition restrictions set forth in the Lanham Trademark Act of 1946, 15 U.S.C. Section 1125, and 4, state trademark and anti-dilution laws. The hell with all that crap. I know what Galambos means by copyright. I've got it up here for you to read too. We all have one thing in common. We are his students. Here's what he says. The copyright, which is the right to copy, belongs exclusively to the owner and to anyone that the author licenses, not the state. The author makes this license available, and I'm using the word author more generally than the author of a book. Author means intellectual source, and that means the author of a machine, the author of a law of nature, the author of a composition of music or a sculpture or a painting. The intellectual source is the only one that has the right to transfer the financial benefits and the right to copy. So financial benefits, the P2 side, that's trustees. Over here is the literary executor, the P1E, you might call it. But the ownership, that is permanently his, and with no expiration time. Got any more on copyright here? The so-called solution of the state patents and copyrights and trademarks is totally useless, even harmful. So I don't answer to these federal patent laws. I go by the theory, and I know that I have the right to copy, the right to use. That means, in Galambos' own words in the trust, the right to edit and to publish his works. God damn it, the trustees have the obligation to put that into my hands and to make sure that the ox is not muzzled as he treads out the grain. Now, Monday, I face a disaster. Marx called me back. And he said, Bill, the argument about the co-trusteeship ain't going to work. It's not going to work. I said, really? Really? Yep. If my memory serves me correctly, Galambos, when he set up the pre-subscription book account trust, named, and you all need to know this, named Mr. Jerry Miller and Matt Lang. Remember that? That sounds like co-trustees to me, doesn't it to you? I know it was. You're right. Co-trusteeship. You know what Marx says to me? He says, well, your argument ain't going to work. No good. I'll make a confession to you. That night I went to bed so depressed, so down, almost defeated, brokenhearted. I lay in bed for hours. I couldn't go to sleep. I said, son of a bitch. The professor violated his own principle. By the way, I told that to Fred Marx immediately, instantly, didn't I, you guys? I said, well, in that case, obviously, then the professor violated his theories. Oh, Bill. He says to Bill, he says, my God, you're too headstrong, you're too radical, you're too purist. So I went to bed saying, my God, even the professor used the co-trusteeship. What do I do now? What do I do now? Now, I want you all to use your logic, and use your integrity, and use your hearts here. We got three possibilities here, and I decided to write these down so you can contemplate them logically now. This is where validity comes in, big time. Either the principle of single entrepreneurship is a meaningless concept because Galambos' actions negated this principle or nullified it, or a man's actions takes supremacy over his principles, which means his actions are what you go by, not what his principles are. Or the third alternative, and the one I'm going with, a man's principles take precedence over his actions. Can't avoid these alternatives. I just can't shove this under the rug. And who am I? I've accepted the responsibility of being a literary executor. So which is it? Does the principle of single entrepreneurship just mean it's meaningless? It doesn't mean anything at all? Anything goes? You can have all the committees you want? Make them big as you want? Or do I say the actions are more important than the principles? But in that case, the concept of infallibility rests with the fallible actions of man. I prefer to put the infallibility on the side of principle. So I go with this. Yes. Yes, he did.
And he had told Columbus at the time that you must have two.
He might have, and that would certainly mitigate or be extenuating for Galambos. Thank you very much for that. I hadn't thought of that, but you're quite right. Oh, is that correct? Oh, boy, I'm so glad. That takes away my, well, then, that does away with, that's beautiful. The principle is not vitiated. But I'll tell you something right now. I assure you, ladies and gentlemen, there is no necessity to have a co-trusteeship in Galambos' estate. That ends the matter as far as I'm concerned.
Galambos stated that he didn't want to have the trust at all. That he was very strongly recommended that he needed to have it in order to protect himself legally in the land.
Right. A living trust does avoid probate, it avoids publicity, and it avoids conservatorship. Oh, the book trust, yeah, okay, yeah, okay. All right, yeah, he recognized the natural estate trust, yeah, of course. I thought you were talking about that. All right, so there's the story. It is midnight. I'm telling you something right now, this is the most critical moment in the history of the theory of primary property, other than the critical moments that Galambos went through, and I wouldn't know how to recount them for you. I'm sure he had many. But right now, we have an unbelievably critical situation. Now, what do I do?
The actions and so on that are going on have created publicity, and the publicity you have just told us about, the response from this law firm. Now that's publicity that we don't need. And if you continue in that vein, that kind of publicity is going to get bigger and bigger, and you're going to lose.
I know that.
No matter what.
That's right. So what's your proposal? You got a proposal? I don't quite understand your point. Are you saying that I'm causing adverse publicity here? Is that what you're saying? That's what you're saying, isn't it? Huh? Yes or no? Basically. What do you mean basically? Yes or no? Come on, be explicit. What are you saying? Oh, you're taking too long. Anybody else have any comments to make? Yes.
We all put money into that trust to purchase a book, 2 books, 3, 4, 20, how many various people purchase. Why couldn't we all send letters to that trust and rescind to them and insist upon reimbursement to us individually that we don't want our money in their trust any longer, and then go ahead after we get that money back and publish this book that you have done?
And I think reinstate the proper trusteeship of the estate. I really am in a quandary, ladies and gentlemen. My duty was here to bring you the facts. And I'm really looking to the market here to act here. What can I do? I will not ever compromise. Yes?
I want to make one correction. I apologize. The idea originated with Ted Marshall.
Okay. Mr. Marshall, would you like to say something?
No, I just suggested to.
Okay. Well, I don't know. I've had some people call me and tell me that the only thing these guys, these knuckleheads, will listen to is force. Nasty business. But Galambos did say, how about courts?
How would that be if everybody got their money back and then sent it to you? How much would that amount to?
Well, I know that it's going to take $85,000 to get all 2,500 copies completed, bound, and ready to go. And they owe me $20,000. I got to be paid. Yes, Gene?
I can tell you why that is. There's a clause in the book purchase contract, in the Tusco book purchase contract, that states, anybody check out that copy of that? The contract?
Lost the leading fraud.
Mr. it states, I'll paraphrase slightly, but it's something along these lines. It's very short. It says, notwithstanding anything else to the contrary in this document, in the event that the funds of the book trust are interfered with by any act of coercion, then Tusco's responsibility to deliver the books to the subscribers is null and void. So that, and in fact, that clause of that contract has been in effect since 1984 when Mr. Lang's and the various activities came by. It was always Mrs. Galambos' intent. It was always my irresolute intent to uphold the contract, to deliver the books. It is clearly, if you have any doubt about Mr. Martin's intents on this, then I'd be afraid you weren't paying attention. But that clause at the moment is technically in effect, and therefore, from the position that the trustees have adopted, depending as Mr. Martin has shown you quite eloquently on erroneous and disastrous interpretations of their authorities, they can and will refuse to pay refunds.
That's right.
Now, that having been said, and I don't know that this is public knowledge, but it has also been the case that in the past there have been individuals who were malefactors, who were people who were not persona non grata of the Institute, who sued to receive refunds on their books. And I believe they were settled out of court. In fact, there were some refunds made. But Mrs. Galambos and the professor kept that very quiet because that was a potential disaster if that got around. So the fact of the matter is that on the one hand, you've got this book contract clause that is an out in the event of an act of coercion, which Mr. Lang's activities fill that bill. I mean, there's no arguing with that. On the other hand, there is also a precedent set. So, yeah.
That money was, the money's return happened during their lifetime, didn't happen after. This money wasn't returned by Hayes and Joyner.
Well, we got to make sure you talk about, understand, there's two different trusts we're talking about here. The first one was the book trust. That's the one you all paid the money into. And when you instituted the trust, those of you who purchased books prior to 1978 purchased them on a direct contract with the professor. He instituted this trust in 1978 at the strong urging of his advisors at the time, and I'm pretty sure that included Mr. Marks. I'd also like to, just as a quick aside, make an announcement. I've asked the gentleman if I sorry if I did. Mr. Anthony Wolski is standing in the back of the room there. Mr. Martin has alluded to people having purchased this book as long ago as 27 years in the year of 1981. It so happens that Mr. Wolski was the first person to purchase copies of the professor's book. In 1978, he gave the professor a check, I believe it was $1,000? For $1,000. 60. And he gave the professor a check. He said, when your book is published, I want to purchase copies of it. This is my earnest money up front. The professor wrote him a note back that said, when my book is published, you will receive 5 copies. That was in 1968. In the order of precedence for who buys it the earliest gets the lowest available serial number, Mr. Wolski has that distinction in history. He did that before the professor made, 3 years before the professor made a formal offer in 1971. So, but anyway, yes.
That issue of that clause being in effect
Yes.
because of the Lang thing
Correct.
doesn't always apply. I bought one book, I paid for it after the Lang thing to show support for
Yes, but you
Galambos.
also, after the, I don't know if you signed the same Tusco contract, but it was not long after that that Mrs. Galambos discontinued the use of the Tusco Trust contract. They basically didn't, the purchases that they sold after the, so yeah, you're correct. You're not bound by that, but you're also not on the, it's not part of the trust agreement. So the majority of the books that were purchased either prior to the trust and were later moved on to the trust, or were purchased on the trust after it was established.
How much money do you need to get going?
If we did it independently, and I held these attorneys off with the something back in return, I guess on Monday, and say, hey, wait a minute, I honored the agreement. I didn't violate any copyright laws, or whatever I didn't finish that point. Let me see if I can find it real quick here. If I can stall them off, book 1 could be out. Yeah, maybe by Galambos' birthday. 85,000? Mm-hmm. 20 to get me paid off. Maybe have a little extra, just to operate with. What's that? Yeah, but what I'm really after, ladies and gentlemen, I guess is this working? What I'm really after here is it's got to clean up this trust business. Got to clean that up. I mean, I want to do this the way Galambos wanted to do it. Yes.
Here's a suggestion, I haven't thought it too well, but, let the market speak.
Both books on the marketplace, and you let the market speak.
Sure bet.
Yours and the one that, why Suzanne and her helpers, they can,
I guess so.
I know the trustees would probably never agree to that.
You see, what I'm looking for.
Compromise being made, and we give the trustees, Suzanne, and that would, to me, be a compromise, just that. Concern me, they choose the public benefit.
I'm almost certain that's precisely what they're planning to do.
And that would be, I think,
Or not quite finished, or even what the.
I think what they're going to do is take a version that I
Do
sent
they?
over them, like on the early part of March, which wasn't perfected. It's got errors in it. I don't want that to go out. I mean, that's my reputation's sake, but I'm thinking they'll probably take that and publish it. That's what I'm thinking.
They're going to send it to a flatline editor to do it, too.
Oh, God. Our problem is with the trustees. Therein hangs the tail, ladies and gentlemen. Now, how do you get them out of there if they won't come to reason with you? Yes.
Is the trust document a legal document?
Sure.
Yes.
Is it interpretable in the terms of a court that can interpret the terms of that and show that they're violating that agreement instead of you?
I believe so.
Then why hasn't that approach been taken already? Why doesn't Mr. Marcus address
3 years.
Why hasn't that been the focus of the attention? Why isn't the ancillary agreement?
Because the issue hasn't really come to a head until now.
To me, that's the central part of the argument.
Okay.
It goes in court.
What does
I
it
agree. I've been saying that all along.
say? And why, if there's any litigation and you're forced into it, you have to have somebody that will defend the trust and show that they're incorrect.
I agree.
Seems to me like that's the only truth.
Well, the attorney that drafted it has agreed with me.
And that should be part of the answer. Back to the replies.
Okay. Good suggestion. Yes?
Let those of us in the marketplace somehow get in touch with the trustees.
Oh, I'd love it if all of you were to descend upon them and say, get out. Or,
Because they won't honor their agreements. They won't honor their agreements as criminals.
It's a person in the marketplace.
I agree with that, but they won't, anything we agree, they won't do.
yes. Yeah, yeah. That was back in September. Baloney.
That's what I'm saying.
We wouldn't even buy that otherwise.
I mean, I say baloney to a proposal. Yes, back there.
They wouldn't agree to give you, they would only. They wouldn't get any longer.
Towards a good intention, but don't take long.
They're in government.
First of all, it's very late. The old expression, act in haste, repent in leisure.
Yep.
This is 30 years of mistakes. You all should spend some time thinking about solutions and not trying to have a big group mob, all get rattle-rousing and solve the problem instantly. There's going to be a little bit of discussion, thought, get out of the mess.
I agree with that.
Second point, Galambos always felt that it was better to have no application than a misapplication. To have a book published under anything other than perfect circumstances is to me unacceptable. I bought 5 total books,
I
2
agree.
of the book. I don't want one of them if there's blood on it or immorality.
That's right.
It's not worth having because we have the theories in our head. We've heard the courses. I'm assuming most of you have attended a lot of his courses. Let's not make a mistake here now.
I agree.
There are a lot of problems I told you on the phone I would not have handled things the way you handled it, but I respect the fact that you acted in what you believe was the correct course of action. I think, you know, to quote Thomas Paine, all that's necessary for the triumph of evil is that good men do nothing.
No, it isn't perfect.
So thank you very much. Appreciate those comments. Let's see. I would say that if somebody were asking me what I would do, is if I don't turn back the stuff to them on Monday, they're going to level all their legal guns at me with all the resources of Galambos' estate. So I'll become a flatland criminal. If I refuse to answer any of their depositions, I'll be in contempt of court. That'll put me in jail, and I can remain there forever. I've had a couple of attorneys tell me that. Yeah. So the other thing is, what do? Do I give it back to them? Do I give up? Can't do. It's not in my nature. Well, they're asking for them. They know enough to make it. I could always tell them, I'm sorry, you guys. In a fit of absolute despair and depression, I destroyed everything.
Did you say that under oath with a $100 bill in your shoe?
Absolutely. No hesitation on that one, Jack. I do not owe the truth to a flatland court. A lot of people don't seem to get that one through their heads. They haven't got the guts. They never got out of flatland enough to be able to act that way. I'm above the law. So are all of you. That's right. So I say, let's sleep on it tonight. I think what I'm going to do is send a fax back to the lawyer and say, just to go through the rigmarole and say, I didn't violate it. I used the agreement. Here's the citation. You guys deleted something I didn't approve. Remember, I showed you that. There we are. Now we go to arbitration. I won't do that. But that buys us time. Time for you to think. Time for pressure to be put on these guys. Big time. Real big time. And we'll see what happens. Now I know I talked to one gentleman who's not here tonight. He said, Bill, he says, the only thing these guys are going to answer to is a class action suit. He says, if we sue them for a refund of our money plus interest, even if we don't get it, or even really try to, that should put sufficient pressure on these guys to start talking with us. Isn't it? It is. And whose fault is it? Is it, as Fred Marx would have us believe, my fault? The hell with that. It's these guys. So, there we are. Now, I got the book here. I've got the book. There'll never be a better one. If they want it, they got to bend. I'm not going to bend. Yes, ma'am.
Are there provisions in the trust for the replacement of the trustees for malfeasance or for any other cause other than death?
Ma'am, I'm almost certain about this in the boilerplate of the trust, yes.
Those conditions should be looked at and see if any of them apply to this situation.
I have an additional answer to that. I did a little research myself. I'm not an attorney, obviously, but as I understand it,
James, use the mic, please.
I'm not an attorney, but I did do a little bit of research on this from a source that's knowledgeable. The trustees. It's on? Hello. Okay. The trustee, since the trust document itself, the Andrew J. and Suzanne J. Galambos living will, which upon the death of Mrs. Galambos and the prior incapacitation of her husband, became the Andrew J. Galambos and Suzanne J. Galambos living trust, with Messrs. Hayes and Joyner as co-trustees, etc. That document is a legal flatland document, and as such, since the document itself makes no names appointed as to the succession of the trusteeship beyond Mr. Hayes and Mr. Joyner, when you incorporate the amendment from 1995. Ultimately, since this is a flatland structure, the accountability and the responsibility flow up to whatever the presiding jurisdiction's attorney is, whether it depends on the jurisdiction. It could be a district attorney, it could be a state's attorney. In some cases, it's a U.S. attorney. So the only recourse in what you're asking, Mrs. Adams, is to basically get the DA on their tail. The beneficiary of the trust is exactly what was in that document, which was the furtherance of the publication, the preservation, and the editing and publication of the there is no individual beneficiary named in the sense that a beneficiary is named in a will. And in fact, this document, can I say what I just put on your, that note to you there?
Go ahead.
Yeah. The purpose, the reason why the Galambos has entertained the use of this particular mechanism, they had a very specific reason in mind. They were very concerned about the prospect of, once they were gone, of their estate being put into probate, which is a legal, flatland required legal structure that is a public record, and their entire estates, all their assets are then open to total public scrutiny. They did not want this to happen. In the law, in recent years, this concept that they refer to as the living will, and then the living trust, has been established principally for the purpose.
Concentrate the distributions from the trust on activities that will further the the publication, number one, perpetuation and protection of the innovations. There are no children.
Yes.
There are no, James, let me handle it, okay? The reasons for doing the trust, in addition to this, were to create 2 federal state tax exemptions. 2 $600,000 federal estate tax exemption. Create what is called an AB trust or ABQ tip trust. That means the first $1,200,000 of the estate is free of any federal estate taxes, and anything over that is subject to the federal estate tax. Quickly runs up to 55% tax bracket. So it's almost confiscatory. And by having a living trust, you avoid probate because it's not answerable to the court. You've already created the trustee. Furthermore, what was really valuable is that in the event of incapacitation, such as a stroke or Alzheimer's or whatever, you don't have to create what is called a conservatorship, which is very expensive in public record. So you avoid publicity, you avoid probate, you avoid the conservatorship, and you create 2 $600,000 lifetime exemptions, which is worth probably about $300 and some thousand in federal estate taxes that you otherwise would have to pay. So those are the basic reasons. But there were also other reasons to have the trust. The other reasons to have the trust is what I showed you right here. This establishes what the heck's supposed to happen to those assets after they're gone. Very clear. Did a wonderful job. The net income of the trust shall be accumulated and added to principal. And it is the wish of the trustors that the principal plus accumulated income be referred to by the trustee as a natural estate trust. The trustee is directed to concentrate the distributions from the trust on activities that will further the publication, perpetuation, and protection of the innovations of Andrew J. Galambos. Now think about that for a minute. Who does it? Who does it? Who is empowered? Who is authorized to do that? Question. Normally it would be the trustees, wouldn't it? But Galambos had the corporation chart in V201. He recognized there was a P1 function. So down here, in this paragraph right here, let me use this little gizmo here, right there, right here. It says the trustees presently are working on numerous manuscripts which are in various stages of completion. The trustee is instructed to consult with and is authorized to utilize the services of a literary executor. Now what does that mean? Here it is. Acting as agent for the literary properties of the trustors. Not the trustees. Not the trustees. The literary executor. With respect to the management key word, because he comes down here and describes it right there. With respect to the management of any manuscripts which are a part of the estate of the trustors. The trustors nominate James D. Got to have somebody to do it. So they nominated James D. Gafford as the literary executor and William W. Martin as a successor literary executor to work with the trustee in this regard. So that's why I say clean up the trust. We've got to get that trust because my job is to work with the trustee. They don't want me going out doing independent work here. I don't want to do that. I want to obey what he says here. We could do it. We got to clean house. Yes, Mr. Kinnear.
I'm just curious, how many books did he buy?
We have no record of anything.
I do have a record of that, in fact. I don't recall precisely the number. It's on the order of 6 or 10. And
I never got it.
No, it's because it's not in the database yet. He sent me the information about that last
See,
fall.
look at the handicap I'm working with here.
Yeah. But you don't have to worry about that, Bill. I got that covered.
Okay.
But I would add a key point. It is my understanding, and I'm going to go out on a limb on this because I don't know this for absolutely certain, but it is my concerted memory or understanding that he did not pay, that Mr. Hayes did not pay cash for his copies of the book. He received copies of the book from the professor in exchange for his services as an accountant and a tax preparer. So yes, there was presumably a value for value exchange there, but he didn't walk in and say, I want to buy copies of the book and here's my money. He got it as a fringe benefit and a quid pro quo.
Mr. Gafford?
Sir.
While we're on that subject, what shape are the databases in? Because I heard that, because of the Lang situation, things got pretty fouled up.
Well, first of all, every one of you received a letter here tonight, or the spouse and the married couple who received a letter. Is that not so? Or you're with somebody here who received a letter. Everyone who received a letter.
The microphone.
But you can't hear me? Everyone here received a letter that was addressed to them. If you happen to notice very carefully, the format of the address, the use of minimal titles, the spelling out of the state name, were all precisely in accordance with the very explicit standards for surrounding dignity that the professor established for such things a very, very long time ago. I'm told that in the early days when they had to go into the 3x5 card file and they'd type up envelopes from hundreds of 3x, Mrs. Stumps, I think, probably has done this. I know there are a couple of other ladies who have, that he'd walk into an office and he'd pull out the one envelope that had the error on it. Well, in 1991, I undertook the task of start beginning to computerize the database of information about names and addresses of people who were FEI students, and in particular, the information about who had purchased how many copies of which books. I have been the sole manager and caretaker of that from that point forward. I am to this day. That is how you all got your letters. Mr. Hayes, I think it has just dawned on him very recently. I got rather a nasty phone message from him last night. But the fact of the matter is, where I had my failure was in a vein of biting off more than I could chew. I didn't know it at the time, but I also, as Bill Martin has told you, a point came where, as bitter a pill as it was to swallow, I had to stand up and face myself and say, I can't do this. I don't have what it takes, and if I don't, therefore somebody else has to. So that was my first thought on the subject. But I'll tell you something else. My resignation is going to go down in history, not as a resignation from the professor, not as the thing that Mr. Fountain tried to imply here a moment ago. And I'd had some liking for him in the past, but when he made the implication that I had somehow backed out as a coward, that's when I stood up and walked right up into his face. And I wish, frankly, he'd taken a swing at me because I would have decked him. But I'm not willing to accept that. But let me finish real quickly. That database of information, I am the one who put that together. I'm the one who maintains it. The limitations of it right now are as follows. It is not inconceivable that there may be some book contracts out there that I don't know the existence of. At the time I first put that together, I had available to me directly from Mrs. Galambos every single one of the Institute's original copies, or TUSPCO's original copies of those book contracts, and every bit of that information went into that database. I have maintained that from day one. It is as intact and as accurate and valid as is physically possible to be. The only real problem we've got right now is that there are a lot of people I don't have current addresses and phone numbers for, so I can't contact them. But that's less important than keeping track of to whom belongs what, and that I have well in hand.
Okay, let me, there's a question here, but before you're next, but let me just say something real quick. I think maybe what I want to do here is you think about what you heard. I'm going to send out a summary of everything that happened here to all of you, and I will propose what I think we should do, or what I'm going to do. And then you give me your feedback. let's stay in touch, because if we don't do this, this whole thing falters and those guys win.
On our obligation on the contract for the book, are we obligated to take whatever the trust gives us? Anything that they throw at us is good enough to satisfy the.
If I remember.
Okay, yeah, I'm sorry. Wait a minute, the gentleman back here.
I need clarification. I may take Coco, I've been FBI, course, since 1976. You're putting a great deal of weight on that paragraph you have up on the screen, and understandably so,
Right.
because it defines your role. My clarification, or my question is, since I can't read from this distance, is that considered on its face, by its language, a mandatory imposition duty of the trustees, or is it enabling? I see the word authorized there.
Yes, let me tell you, think about
How would you construe that? How would
Yeah.
flatland law construe it?
Okay, Galambos defined authority. Does anybody remember how it was? Moral power. That's the definition of authority. If they do not exercise what Galambos has authorized them to do, then the power to make available to the literary executor falls to the ground, and nothing gets done. So he's given them the authority and the instructions to consult with the literary executor. If you go back up to the top paragraph there, up here, you see that the distributions from the trust are to be concentrated. Let's see, the trust is directed to concentrate the distributions from the trust on activities that will further the publication, perpetuation, and protection of the innovations of Andrew J. Galambos. Okay, that's established. Now the question is, who does what? And by what authority? So if you come down here, right here, the trustors are presently working on numerous manuscripts which are in various stages of completion. The trustee is instructed to consult with and is authorized, or giving them the authority to utilize the services of a literary executor. Why did they say a literary executor? Because this thing is designed to last indefinitely. And many years down the road, I'm going to be dead. And somebody has, and the trustees are going to be dead. So what they're saying here is a literary executor is going to be charged with the responsibility of editing and publishing these works, and the distributions from the trust are to be concentrated on activities that will further the publication, perpetuation, protection, and the innovations of Galambos. All right, now down here he's saying the trustee is instructed to consult with, in other words, you've got to go to the literary executor. You can't do this. You got to go, we're telling you to go to the literary executor, and we're giving you the authority to utilize those services, or the services of a literary executor, who is acting as agent for the literary properties of the trustors. If they don't exercise that authority, it doesn't happen.
The problem is in flatland law, you have the dichotomy in the same sentence. You have an instruction, and then you have a different verb, mandate, the word authorized.
Mm-hmm.
There will be a distinction in flatland law between those two. They are instructed unambiguously to consult with. They are not instructed unambiguously to use, utilize, employ, whatever word you want to use, the literary executive. That's the problem I see as instructing flatlands. Yes.
Okay. Bye.
Excuse me. There's one problem here, which is you have given us a lot of information which is verbal, and the sound waves pass out, and it's just in our memories, which are very poor at maintaining information. Will you allow us to purchase the complete information packet which you have there?
Not purchase, I'll send it to you.
Well, it's going to cost you expenses, so we ought to pay for expenses.
Videotape, yeah, we'll have it edited and or made it.
Yeah, but also the paperwork there, which you like some of the things which you sent on the Fred Marks.
Yeah.
If you could, anyone would be interested, let them make arrangements to get a copy of everything, because this is the best way for everyone to have a chance to look at it at our leisure and study it rationally instead of. And so we can have a copy of that.
Yeah.
So if for the expenses, maybe we could pay for the expenses if necessary, maybe $10 or $5, however much it costs.
Yeah, I'll let you know.
But let's get a copy of that there out so that we could look at it there. if we have 500 people
It-
with the facts at their fingertips, it's going to be much more powerful than 500 people who heard a story.
I agree.
Initially, it's absolutely essential that you be able to delay the action by some kind of response.
Which I'll do on
and
Monday.
With enough, feeding them enough data that they can contemplate using the trust as a basis for thinking about whether they should proceed or not.
Ed?
Yeah. In your next communication with us, this group, would you please indicate the names, addresses, and the telephone numbers of these two trustees
Sure.
so we can directly have some ability to have an interface?
Do we have that here?
Well, I didn't bring pencil and paper. I don't want you to give it to me.
It's on the letterheads here. Who said what back there? What? Okay. I like your spirit. Yes. Yeah.
Appears to me to be very crucial.
Absolutely.
I would like you to go ahead with this, explain who signed it.
Yeah.
You got the date.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't know if I got.
No, I don't have it up on the screen.
Because here are your names.
I don't want to talk to you.
Go ahead.
Yeah. Sure.
Is this a public document? I understand proprietary things, I understand all that.
Yep.
But is this a public document, this trust?
The will is, not the trust. Trust is a private document. Here's the signature.
So it's,
I don't think we've got a slide for it. Yeah, it's Andrew J. Galambos here, Suzanne J. Galambos there. So, let me just say that I'll send out a summary to everybody. That's worth doing, and I'll also reply to them, and I'll create a delay in tactic as much as I can. I have to do that. That you can look forward to, and let's think about it over the weekend. By that time, I've got a lot of thinking to do, and I'll be back with something to all of you quickly. Yeah, just a minute. There's a question here. I've got a fax number, yes. It isn't on the letter?
So what we need to do is we need to have people even though we have paid for the
Jack? Jack?
That's not at all out of the question, but I think
Here's the amendment.
spoke a moment ago.
Here's the signature of Mrs. Galambos. She signed as attorney, in fact, for her husband. He never signed this. He was too sick. This is October 23rd, 1995. How much he was in terms of this thing is worth. Because yes.
We can't all sign our name tags.
May I interject for, am I on? May I interject for a moment, please? You mic me up, please?
You had it in your diary.
Test. Oh, yes. If I may interject just for one moment briefly.
Here's what Galambos was real sick.
I was just handed a business card with a change of address. I would strongly encourage any of you
You got a signature on
that if you either have changes of address or telephone number isn't as critical as mailing address is, I need to know that. And there actually was a clause in the TUSPCO Trust contract where the subscribers are required to keep TUSPCO updated on their address. At the moment, I think it's something on the order of about 22 or 23% of the Book One subscribers I do not have current mailing addresses for. They're unlocated. Pardon? Well, yes, that's probably true. But the point being that there's a substantial percentage of the Book One subscribers that are currently unlocated. Any of you who either wish to give me that or who wish to contact me directly, I'll be happy to give my address and my phone number. I am very shortly going to lose access to the Institute's mailbox, which I've just I've been doing some things similar to what Mr. Martin has done. dissembling with Mr. Hayes. If you want to write this down, I'll give you my home telephone number. If I'm inundated, I can't promise you I'll be able to speak to you personally, but just leave a message and the information will get taken care of. My home telephone number is area code 760-242-0537. Okay, and 760-242-0537. And if you happen to know somebody that didn't get a letter that should have, by all means, have them let me know.
For anybody before you leave, we still got a little time. Get up here and look at the book. You need to see it. Bruce, it's here for you. And thank you very much, everyone, for coming, and congratulations.
I think you overlooked that point I'm trying to make, is that if we don't have to accept the book,